you see the truth behind the lies. You long to break free. Welcome, my digital friend. You have come to the collective channel to free your mind. Are you ready to exit the matrix?
Yeah.
In this episode, we unravel mysteries of the Anunnaki with our very special guest, Bob with Exit the Matrix.
Hi, and welcome to Our Twisted Universe. Today, we're going to be talking with Bob from the wildly popular Facebook page, Exit the Matrix. Hi, Bob. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Good. So we came across you, and you had a lot of things to say, and we really liked where you were coming from. We were wondering what got you started on this Facebook page, and what is your motivation on that?
Well, I started the page about 5 years ago. To be honest, my whole life, I've had a passion for wanting to learn, what is the truth of our existence? Like, why are we here? How are we created? Why were we created? Things like that. Like, I was that kid in high school that, I kid you not, like in English class, I did my whole, you know, school project on the Bermuda Triangle, and like I'd say like 3/4 of the kids in my class were just like, "What is this guy talking about? We don't even know." So I mean, even at a young age, I was reading Nostradamus, Edgar Casey, the Bible, other esoteric texts, researching UFOs and aliens and just a wide variety of stuff. So, throughout my life, I've always had that passion for, interesting things like that, like outside the norm of what, typical society even pays attention to. And so I really got into research on the Anunnaki, and a lot of that, spun off of my research over the years, into the Bible and other books that were taken out of the Bible, like the Book of Enoch, other like the Book of Giants, Jasser, other books that were, omitted by the Council of Nicaea, from the, I guess what you call the final version of the Bible now. So,
I didn't know they had a Giants version.
Oh yeah.
I knew about Enoch, but I didn't know about.
Oh yeah, there's many books, and then you can go into the Nag Hammadi scriptures, which those were written by the Essenes, which a lot of Christians don't believe, understand this, but a lot of the followers of Christ, his apostles, were Essenes, including John the Baptist, and they had a lot more esoteric outlook, on the Old Testament than, the Pharisees and, the Sadducees and, a lot of the other religious sects at the time. And they were actually the outcasts. They were the rebels. And, and they hid those texts in Egypt to protect them from being destroyed by, I guess, the organized religion at the time. And so, I know it upsets a lot of, my fellow, Christian brethren that they think that it's, sacrilegious to even bring up that stuff, and that, the Gnostic texts to them are, hearsay and wrong. But, it honestly, a lot of that gives you a lot deeper like outlook into that early Christian period, and what they thought about the creation and the powers, behind the scenes in our creation. So
I feel like it's the Bible, and there's a whole lot more.
yes. So and so, I started looking into the Sumerian tablets, which is amazing nowadays because, it used to be that, I know Zachariah Sitchin, he gets a lot of hits from both sides of the aisle. But he was doing his best in trying to translate these tablets and these ancient texts and stuff, and kind of like connect all the dots, between the Hebrew texts and the Sumerian tablets and other ancient texts and stuff, even the Egyptian mythologies and stuff. And But I mean, you can do your own research nowadays. You go to the ETCL with Oxford University, and they translate all of those tablets. I mean, not all of them, obviously. There's hundreds of thousands of tablets that have not been translated, but they've translated hundreds of those tablets, and you can get your own viewpoint out of those. It's a look into what our earliest ancestors, at least in this earth age, believed. So
Hmm.
That's fascinating. I want did he find like a something that was kind of um what am I trying to say? Connecting like through all the scriptures and all the ancient texts, did they find something that was kind of like a repetitive thing throughout all the cultures and religions?
oh, there's many. I mean, the flood itself. I mean, pretty much every major religion or mythology or belief system in the world talks about this great flood that kind of reset the earth. It reset humanity. That's across the board. In the Bible, in the Sumerian tablets, you got the Atrahasis. That talks about that. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Um, I mean, just on and on and on. The Egyptians, all those ancient civilizations, talked about that. Even the South American and North American Indian, or Native American peoples, they had those same beliefs too. So, I mean, it was a worldwide thing. And that was just one of them. The creation story itself is very similar across the board too. But it's like we're given like parts of the puzzle, but we have this big giant puzzle that you have a lot of missing pieces. So
Yeah.
you really, a lot of people, they zero in on one little part of that puzzle and they think they can get the answers there, but you really have to zoom out and look at it from an overhead view, and you have to, kind of connect the dots, to make the best guess at what reality is, or what the truth was. So
I
that's what I like to do. I like to just take all the pieces and try to connect the dots. So
That's blowing my mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's the flood. There's a bunch, but there's the flood. And when you said that it's across pretty much all cultures, there's also dragons are the same way. I mean,
oh
there
yeah.
doesn't appear to be any dragons now, but that's still a common thread. So,
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, well, when you actually look at a lot of the Sumerian creation myths, Tiamat, was described as this big giant beast.
mhm.
But at the same time, Tiamat was also the representation of Earth at that, in that ancient period. And it talks about how the Sumerian creation mythology, the way that they explain it was that this Tiamat, was destroyed, that she was torn asunder in half, and that parts of her were strewn out throughout the galaxy, out throughout the universe, and that what we like to call the what they call the hammered bracelet is the asteroid belt that we call in our solar system. And they believe that that was part of the original Tiamat of that world, and that you know at one point Earth was a lot bigger than it is now, and it was broken up when that happened. And then when that happened, that also messed up Mars's their atmosphere. I mean, Mars was a livable planet like Earth at one point. So it's
Really
really
looked
interesting.
like they had it inhabited.
Yeah.
Did you see the recent picture with the doorway?
No, but I know there's been a lot of anomalies found on Mars, so I would believe it.
I mean, it's a square cut out of the side of a big rock, and it looks like a tunnel. It looks like something we would do.
You're trying to dismiss it as just a rock slide, like it
Yeah,
broke away.
yeah,
Precise cuts.
Yeah, it's all square.
yeah.
Looks like it goes back into the hillside, has like sloped sides and everything. It's like an entry.
So,
Wow.
what happened here affected Mars. It makes sense.
Yeah, it was a galactic thing that happened. Planets were moved out of their orbits, In fact, a lot of people talk about at one point that Saturn was the original sun, and that of course, there's old Saturn worship and everything now, and you got that it escapes my mind, what that geometric shape is on like the pole of Saturn, but it's mind blowing when you think about it. I mean, you
Yeah.
look at the they believe in the cube of Saturn and all that, and you look at Mecca where they walk around the black box, the black cube, and
Yeah.
it's got that rock that that fell to Earth. That's the cornerstone of it, and I mean, ancient civilizations, they had a totally different viewpoint on our um, you know our solar system than what we do now, but yet it was almost like they were looking at it before things changed too. So
That's fascinating. I've never heard that before.
Well, we talked a lot about ancient Samaria. Um, that kind of brings us to the Anunnaki. Who are they?
so this is kind of, this might be a little like hard for some people to take, but we are them and they are us. um, we have their DNA. We are a hybridized species that they hybridize. Now, one thing that I want to make clear is that even though they had a hand in the hybridization of of our current human species, um, they are not the creators of all. They're not what you would call God or the source. I like to call the creator of all because that kind of just puts that over all of those titles and everything. But they came here, and I don't know like how much it went against maybe like laws of the universe, but they came here and they manipulated living beings on this earth, and they changed the DNA. They genetically modified the DNA of the hominids that were here on the earth at the time. And what really gave humans this extra upgrade was the fact that they actually inserted some of their soul spirit essence into their original modified human beings. So you would call that Adam and Eve. If you actually look at Genesis, you can go right to the King James version. It says, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And theologians, they'll try to say, well, that meant God and the Trinity version, in his multiple forms.
Mm-hmm.
But these gods that actually came here, they were these I guess the Bible would call them the fallen angels, but the Sumerians called them the Anuna gods or the Anunnaki. And in fact, Anunnaki even means from heaven to earth they came. Can mean the princely seed, which also has a lot of connotation in that involved too. But I hope that kind of explained that a little bit to you guys.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of Prometheus.
Yeah, the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Hollywood, they've had the inside track on a lot of this information for a while. I don't know. I don't like to use the term Illuminati, but let's just use it for the fact that it's a easy term to kind of an umbrella term that we can kind of put these people all under, that kind of rule our world and run our world, that run this matrix that we find ourselves in. But
Worshippers of
I mean, they believe that they have to give us bits of information. It's because it's part of that law of the universe. They think they're following they believe it's balancing out karma. They can give you some lies, but they can give you some truth too. They have to balance out the lies with truth. But the way that they give us the truth is not straightforward. They like to just give it to us in little bits and pieces through their systems, which is the media, movies, all of those systems of control over society. That's how they kind of feed that to us. And then they believe that, well, we're good now because, hey, we give you guys little bits of truth here and there. Now it's up to you guys to figure out what the truth is and what the lies are.
And
most people, just believe the lies and march forward, So, and that goes right over their heads.
Yeah. I get that. Doesn't look like they pulled the wool over your eyes too much.
Well, I mean, you gotta you once you kind of pull yourself to the outside looking in, it's a little easier to see the game. And most people, it's very easy to get like into a tunnel vision. You live your life and you're paying your bills, you're working hard, you're taking care of your family, you're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So they build this illusion around people, that's what I like to call the matrix. And it keeps people in line, and essentially they're harvesting our energy. That's what these people do, these beings. I actually the ones behind the scene are truly energetic beings. The Gnostics call them the archons, Christians call them the demons or the Nephilim spirits. The Muslims call them the jinn. So they go by different names, but there truly are energetic beings that harvest our energy. And I mean, all you got to do is just think about what you do every day, right? Like, think about it. You sleep, you get recharged. You go to work in the morning, you give all this energy, you work anywhere, most people anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
By the time at the end of the day, you are drained like a battery, right?
Yep.
You eat, that gives you a little sustenance, you go back to sleep, you get recharged, and you keep doing the same thing over and over. And you're building their world. You're just a cog in their system. And so that in the movie The Matrix, that's why they use that analogy that people sleeping in pods, and the computers, the machines, were just using them as batteries, human beings. Essentially that's what this reality is. I mean, at least that's how we're used in this reality.
I heard recently, I don't know, it was one of the forums, that all the useless eaters, they don't know what to do with them. So they just want to give them drugs and put them plugged into the metaverse.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're looking at a future where depopulation is the reality. I mean, that's what Agenda 2030 is about. Agenda 21 was bringing in their system and building their internet of everything, was getting all of the players in place, the systems in place. But Agenda 2030 is the start of that depopulation, and that them basically replacing us with robotics and AI to manage the systems, to build the things they need to manage the world, so that they got their they'll have their huge plots of land, their houses on the hill, surrounded by guards, and they can sit up there and play around and do whatever they want. And they essentially are trying to turn us into serfs, like the Middle Ages. It's really what they're doing, but it's not like the way they used to do it. It's that they're trying to plug humanity into a technocratic, totalitarian system, that they can even try to go as far as trapping your soul in their system. So it's really diabolical.
Yeah, I like to say that the nobles of the Middle Ages, when the Magna Carta came around, they didn't go away. They just rebranded themselves and stayed in power.
Yeah. Well, they still controlled the land and the resources and the banking, the currency. In fact, all currency really is an exchange of energy. But what they do is they load it up on their end so that they suck most of the energy from you, and you hardly get anything back in return.
Right.
Some people, figured out ways to, to build big businesses and to do things that can give them some of that financial freedom. But essentially, they're still part of the system too. They're just like, maybe they have a little more freedom, than the regular person, because they're not tied down to finances as much and worrying about, where their next meal's coming from, how they're going to pay for their gas that's out of control, and all that. But they're still in the system. They're still pawns of the system regardless.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is the ones running the system become part of the system. They're slaves to it as well, because they have to run it for it to sustain. And so it's kind of like when when you collect too much stuff, your stuff starts to own you rather than you owning your stuff. Their system is owning them, and they just happen to be responsible for keeping it running.
Exactly. And a lot of, and there is a lot of truth to be said. You know, you always hear the old saying, like musicians and celebrities and politicians, all that, they sell their soul to join the club, right?
Right.
There's truth in that, because a lot of times what happens is you go into that system, and they'll set you up in circumstances that they're going to get blackmail on you. So
Right.
they own you because they can destroy your world, and that's how they control you. A perfect example from here in North Carolina. In fact, he was over my county, over my region of North Carolina, was Madison Cawthorn. He got destroyed by the Rhino Republicans, because the system Republicans, because he had actually come out and said publicly on a podcast that he was invited to these parties in Washington, D.C., where, there was hookers and drugs, and they wanted him to like share his wife with other men, other politicians on the left and the right, Democrats and Republicans. And boy, McCarthy, he came down hard on Madison for letting that little cat out the bag. But that's typical in Washington, D.C. That's how they get that blackmail on them. You bring them to a party, you get them to do something a little messed up on some drugs, you get them to do some with that they would that could haunt them for the rest of their lives, and that
Like
you
go
can
to islands.
over them. Yep, leverage.
Oh
Yeah.
my
So,
gosh.
there's
Yeah.
a reason why they call it a criminal enterprise in Washington, D.C. Very similar to what the mob does, to other gangs and mafias throughout the world, but it's just more sophisticated, and they play at a higher level, but they're criminals, psychopaths.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I don't know how many of our viewers really have done the deep dive on that, but
Yeah.
the more you dig, the deeper the hole goes.
Yeah.
It
For-
is,
Almost.
yeah.
Yeah.
You,
Back
you,
up.
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say back to the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
I had a question. Did you say they were angels or from angels?
Well, the Bible refers to them as angels, sometimes as gods. So here's a thing that's very controversial to say, but all of my research I've done and everything I've read leads me to believe that the God Yahweh in the Bible, the Old Testament God, is actually the two brothers, Enki and Enlil. And it's basically, it's the Hebrews essentially kind of merged those two God figures into one being. If you look at the Old Testament, you see a lot of weird shifts in the way that this God operates, and the way that this God speaks and works with with his chosen race.
Mhm.
I mean, it's like you make one mistake, you're getting, you're not just you, but your kids are going to be under a curse.
I've heard that.
Just just bringing them up out of Egypt and conquering the Canaanites and the Philistines and all of those other civilizations that were in Mesopotamia at the time. It was just it was about war, destruction, kill every man, woman, child, animal. Here's the thing: the creator of all, the true, creator of all of us, this being is not going to be a being that's going to be involved with sending you to war, with getting you to conquer your enemies and all that. Think about it.
Yeah.
If every living being comes from this creator of all, then that would all make all of us, brothers and sisters and children of that being.
Mhm.
Why would you divide and war those, brothers and sisters against each other? It's very interesting. I mean, you look at the Sumerian version of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, because they have the same story that's in the Bible, but there's a lot of different angles that you're looking at that same story. typically the way most people that research what I do, they have come to the understanding that Yahweh in the Bible is the God Enlil. He's the commander of Earth. He's his symbol is the eagle, and then his brother Enki, who's also known as Ea, which the Earth was actually named after Ea. You know, that's the Ea in Earth. He was the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and his family is always represented by the feathered serpent. That's always their connotation. All throughout all the civilizations on Earth, most civilizations actually fall under the standard of the eagle or the serpent, even to this day. So these two brothers have been at war with each other for a long time, ever since those beings, the Anunnaki, came to Earth, and they started, playing God with this world and with the genetics of this world. And Ki was actually the one that genetically modified human beings. Him and his sister Ninmah, Ninhursag, they and his son, Thoth, Thoth, however you want to say his name. Ningazida was his Sumerian name. Those three were the ones that worked together on the creating of the human species, the hybridization of what they called Adamu and Tiamat, which was Adam and Eve in the Bible. Well, when Enlil walked into the garden and he seen what Enki had done, that he had created this hybridized race, and that they had the essence of the gods, which is them, and had their intelligence and everything. Enlil became enraged, and he kicked them out of the Garden of Eden. And that's where you get that fallen away in the, from the beginning in the Garden of Eden in the Bible, where it says that, that Eve was tempted by the serpent and all that, because here's the thing. If you look at the ancient, there's a lot of ancient, carvings that Sumerians had, and there was always one of the main things they had was the tree of life, and there's a tree of knowledge. And you'll see that many times. And in fact, it's interesting. If you look at it, it's actually a representation of the human DNA double helix. And in fact, at one point, we actually had a triple helix, but they shortened that because they shortened our lives. But
when
that
happened.
Oh, it's interesting though, is that it always shows Enki. He's got the pine cone shape, like this device, and he's got the bag at his side, and he's inserting that pine cone into different parts of that tree of life, which is the DNA. I mean, they tried to depict our creation in a simplistic way, like in a symbolic way, but we've lost that understanding, to this day. Humanity has, and but it's very simple when you look at the pictures of it, that they carved in stone, and you can tell that. And as you guys are probably aware, because I watched some of your videos, I know you guys have a very strong esoteric, understandings. That pine cone, right, represents the pineal gland. Well, that pineal gland is in the middle of your brain. In fact, that's the seat of your soul. That's where your soul connects into this third dimensional construct that we call, this existence. And, so they, back then they weren't just manipulating our DNA, but they were figuring out how to insert souls into this reality, because you can't just create a soulless clone or a soulless like avatar.
Right.
It won't do anything. They realized that you had to give it the essence of life, which is that energy, that essence from the creator of all. And that was a big, I mean, that, that's why in the Bible, it comes down so hard on the fallen angels, because they came and they manipulated, and they did, all of this stuff on the earth. They had in the book of Enoch, it explains how they manipulated the DNA of animals, plants, human beings. Pretty much every living thing was corrupted on the earth. And what that really meant was that they genetically modified. They were playing God when they really didn't have the right to do that. you know. But perhaps they did. Perhaps it was all part of the grand plan, you know.
For this existence. Right.
Sorry, I know I kind of like went.
No, it's mind blowing to hear it. It's fascinating. I'm trying to keep up with you because I mean, my I'm going a mile a minute there thinking about all the crazy ideas.
I apologize, and I apologize to your listeners. I do have a problem with that. I start to run with it, and I have to, stop and kind of reframe everything, because I realize that, for me, it's easy to like kind of run through all that stuff, but for a lot of people, that's very confusing, and it's very mind blowing, and it's hard to like absorb that information.
It's
So
the first time I've ever heard it.
I knew a thing or two, but literally a thing or two. This is
yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, it's all written in the stone. It's in those Sumerian tablets, and it's in the Bible. It's in the Book of Enoch. It's in the Nag Hammadi scriptures. It's in the Egyptian mythologies, the Greek mythologies. I mean, there's all of these ancient mythologies that they call mythologies are actually all the same stories, just from different perspectives.
Mhm.
The beings are all the same. Like I mentioned Ningazida earlier. In fact, there's this very famous vase, this ancient Sumerian vase that has Ningazida on it, and it's really interesting. He's portrayed as a snake, and he's in the DNA, design. And this is on a vase that's like 5,000 years old or so, and because he had a hand in that, and he's also the Egyptian god Thoth. I don't know if you guys have read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth before.
I have not, but I've heard them mentioned before. They sound fascinating.
Well, there's a reason why. If you ever read the Emerald Tablets, it's they're controversial too, obviously, but the deep esoteric teaching that goes into it, you just know that it comes from somebody beyond just your regular human being, and he was also the Greek god Hermes. So the same god, this same Anunnaki, Anuna god, has been spoken about and represented in all these ancient mythologies and religions. I mean, I could go on and on about who Enki is, who Enlil is. Enlil would be like Zeus. Enki was Poseidon, because he was also the god of waters, living waters. There's ancient depictions of Enki where he's standing there, and you got water flowing over him with fish and stuff, because that was one of his representations. Was the god of waters, of the abyss, in fact. So you got other players and a lot other Anunnaki. Here's one that is controversial, but it speaks to what our current world religious, like one of the major viewpoints in this world is one of the sons of Enlil was Nanar Sin, and his representation is always the crescent moon. Well, Nanar Sin is who the Muslims call Allah, Allah. And you notice how they always have the crescent moon as their symbol. Well, they're worshiping one of those Anunnaki Sumerian gods, Nanar Sin. That's who they're worshiping. He was the god over that part of Mesopotamia where Muhammad started, where the belief in Allah came from. I mean, these gods have had their hands in our belief systems and in the control of this world for thousands of years. It's just that at some point they pulled back, and they were actually forced to pull back and allow human beings to basically have control over the earth, which unfortunately they didn't completely give us that control. They left their agents in positions to run everything. They have their half children, their half human children that were running, all these civilizations that were the kings and queens.
Is that the 13 bloodlines?
Yeah. I mean, Gilgamesh is a perfect example. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, it explains how he's 1/3 god and 2/3 human. His mother was one of the Anunnaki, And so he was one of these hybridized beings. If you've ever seen depictions of Gilgamesh, you'll notice that he's holding a lion in his arms like it's a kitty cat, you know? So he had a larger stature than the regular human being. He was very powerful, and he was the ruler of Ur, which was one of the original human cities on Earth.
We were wondering if they looked like giants, or how big do you think they would be compared to a normal person?
That's up for debate. Obviously, you have the Nephilim in the Bible, you know, the Nephilim in the Book of Enoch. I mean, there's the Book of Giants talks about like King Og was one of the Philistine like rulers. He was supposed to be like 14 feet tall or something. I mean, it talks about how big his bed was. You look in the Bible, it actually explains how big some of these Nephilims like beds were. Well, I just want people to understand that, you know, the Nephilim, what they are was they were a further hybrid of the human and Anunnaki species. You know, we are hybridized from that species, but we only have a certain amount of that DNA. Whereas the Anunnaki later on, they actually slept with human women and it wanted, you know, and they further genetically, like through blood, you know, altered, you know, that's where the Nephilim came from. They were those offspring that they were you know, they were kind of like their children that were human that were here on Earth that they ensured would continue to rule this world, you know, after they left physically. And those bloodlines are still here to this day. You know, behind the scenes, they run the money, they are the monarchies. You know, they a lot of times they're called the blue bloods. They typically, whereas human beings have more of an iron-based blood, they have more of a copper-based blood, and that's why they're called the blue bloods. You know, they're slightly a little different from us. They have a little different, you know, bloodline makeup than we do, and there's a reason why monarchies around the world have always interbred. You know, I mean, people don't understand this. Most of the royal bloodlines are inbreds. You know, they you know, breed within their own family structure. And what they're doing is they're trying to protect that Anunnaki bloodline that's been carried over from the beginning of time. You know, I mean, the Bible talks about multiple bloodlines on the earth, you know, and I mean, it's the same thing to this day. It's the same, you know, beings, you know, they look like us and we look like them because just like going all the way back to, you know, the Bible, Genesis, you know, let us make man in our image after our likeness. So it's not like these gods look like, you know, crazy reptilians, or they look like some weird, you know, tall, different type of being. Now, possibly in the universe, there are other species like that, but the Anunnaki, we got our likeness after them and they look like us. You know, if they were here on Earth right now, we might just think they're super beautiful, tall human beings. We wouldn't know that they're gods or that they're. And when I say gods, just let me, you know, clarify. That's small g gods. You know,
The God.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting that you mentioned the whole thing around the monarchies, excuse me, and blue bloods. I've been thinking about that the last couple of days, that might be kind of leading up to this conversation, but that was a thing. And that they are a protected bloodline because of that, that they're not entirely the same as our strain.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. In fact, if you really want to blow your mind, if you want to think I'm, you know, kind of just look a little deeper into where my mind's going with this, look at the Jubilee that they just did for Queen Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the video on that. I mean, there's literally a tree with DNA going through it, or there's a tree with purple lights and red, because purple is the color that denotes royalty.
Right.
And then red, you know, is blood. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And then from this tree where they're doing the ceremony, there's the double helix shooting away from the tree and into other, like, you know, esoteric, like, you know, symbols and other stuff. I mean, you can't make this up. I mean, see, what people don't realize is what these people do, what these beings do, is they're doing spells, they're doing ceremonies. Like
Mhm.
what we consider a ceremony or a spectacle to them is a spell. And that's one of the ways that they control and enthrall human beings, mesmerize. And they
People
do it to us all the time.
get it. Like I bought the Lady Gaga, I forgot what it was called. It was the perfume years ago. Loved Lady Gaga, not anymore. But I bought the perfume and I put it on. I just couldn't wear it. I did not use it at all. And I found out later that it had semen and her blood formulated. And they put that in there. And I'm not kidding. Anybody can look it up. Her perfume had that, and I'm like, that's spirit cooking.
Oh yeah. Oh,
what
yeah.
that's doing to people.
100%. I mean, you can. I mean, Hollywood and musicians are. I mean, they're bought and paid. They sell their souls. It's a blood pact that they make to join the club, but there's a price to pay. Most of your female artists are high level witches. And I'm not saying anything bad about witches. I want people to understand that there's your Wiccan witches, like white magic witches and all that, pagan witches. These people are cultist witches. They're doing, it's coming from a darker, standpoint, and they do spells on us all the time. And the males, a lot of your male musicians are warlocks. And I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, without naming particular names, because I don't want to get in trouble. And don't get me wrong, I like some of these people's music, but there's a certain rapper I'm thinking of right now. In his lyrics, he has a song, and he literally says, "Let me go down to the basement, put my black robe on, and put my hands on the globe." I mean, I mean, they just tell you, I mean, there's a look at certain female musicians that have come out doing Super Bowl. Super Bowl mid show, the Super Bowl shows.
Yeah.
And one particular comes out riding the beast, supposed to be representative of the beast system in Revelation of the Bible. And she's dressed as the whore of Babylon. I mean, these people, they do this to us all the time. We just don't realize it. People don't realize that they're in that part of that spell. I mean, stadiums are actually designed in a way to harness that energy, to harness people's emotions and energy. And here you got they're witches and they're warlocks. They go in the middle of these stadiums and they do these spells on everybody. And everybody's in this stadium that as they're doing the spell on them, they're they're getting excited. They got, oh my God, my favorite hero, my favorite singer, and all this emotions flowing out of them and all this energy, and all that energy is getting sucked up. They're being harvested. Don't get me wrong, I love football. I do, but I understand what it is too.
Anymore.
It's interesting. All this stuff comes from the Anunnaki, like in a roundabout way, but it all kind of stems from that.
Oh yeah, that's why on my page I just recently posted, you have to understand the past to understand the present. And a lot of my followers, they're still kind of come along at different levels. And I know that if I post this video on my page, I'm probably going to catch some slack, but I think a lot of people will agree, or it'll open up some minds too. I get a lot of strong followers from the far right on my page, but they don't understand that religion is actually part of the control system too. And even though a lot of their beliefs are actually in line with the truth, they don't realize that they're being manipulated also, and they're not given the full truth. There's this Italian linguist. His name is Mario Biglino, and I may have ruined his name, and I'm sorry, Mario, if I said your name wrong. But he was working for the Vatican for many years, and he was going and looking at original like Hebrew text, Jewish texts, and he was translating them into Latin and into other languages, European languages and stuff. And he started looking at these ancient texts, and he started realizing like there's way more to the story than what they're letting on. And as soon as he started kind of stepping out of line and questioning things and posting about things, he, obviously got kicked out of that, he was not allowed to do what he was doing anymore. And he didn't have that access anymore to all those ancient texts and scrolls and everything that the Vatican controls.
They have quite a stockpile of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just frequency tones. They used to use that in church, the solfeggio. Am I saying that right?
Solfeggio.
Yeah, they used to use those to heal people when they went to church. And then somebody wanted more of the power. So they took it away so that they'd have to go to the man to get healed. Obviously that probably didn't work as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. Yeah. Yep. I mean, music, tones, speaking, resonance, sound resonance. Oh yeah, that's a whole nother deep like rabbit hole to go down, and how they manipulate us further. Yeah, for sure.
I think we're gonna have some more conversations later down on the road.
Yeah, definitely. I'm enjoying it. Like, you guys have made it so easy on me. Thank you. I'm like so at ease with you guys. I was so nervous today, I gotta admit, but I took a swim earlier. I had a beer, I just tried to relax, and but you guys have made it very easy to, like, speak freely and openly with you guys. And I feel like a lot of what I want to say is coming out pretty easily. So
well, we enjoyed speaking with you today. It's been really incredible. I mean, you've given us so much information and things that I've never heard or considered. So I think we'll have to do some of our research.
Yeah, some more deep dives.
And I feel like we need to have you back because you're a wealth of information for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a professional archaeologist or a linguist or a researcher, as far as what academia would say. I'm just a regular guy that's just trying to make sense of this world. And I've just read and studied a lot in my life. And I've gone into so many corners of stuff that you start actually finding the more you research and study, even if you're going down this path and you're going down that path, you start to find they all start to connect. There's a giant web, that starts to build, or that puzzle piece starts to fill in a little more,
You become a researcher just by your interests.
I don't think you should diminish your accomplishments.
Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate that. Like I said, I'm just humble. I'm just, I just want other people to have a passion for looking outside the box.
Yeah.
For stepping outside their reality just a little to look outside of it. And I think too many people are in that cube, and it's hard to get out of that cube. And, because what they want, the world controllers, is they want obedience and they want people asleep, essentially walking zombies. And all you got to do is just go, your daily life every day, you realize that most people are walking zombies. It don't matter if they file into their local church every Sunday.
Yeah.
It don't matter if they are, some, far left greenie, environmentalists. I mean, both of these, people, they have some truth, but they're so locked in the boxes that they live in that they don't realize that they're missing so much of what's out there.
They want an easy button life. It's easy to become complacent and fall into a routine and just coast. And if you ask questions, you disrupt your seemingly peaceful life because some things you might not want to hear, but you grow because of them.
You need to ask those questions because you may not like the truth, but the truth is the only thing that we should be seeking.
Yeah.
And, two things, if you guys don't mind, we close out. I wanted to mention, these two brothers, Enlil and Enki, and their father's Anu. That's supposed to be the top level of the Anuna hierarchy. Well, I mentioned earlier that the one is the feathered serpent and the other one is the eagle. Well, it's interesting, you know, I mentioned earlier how there's these conflicts around the earth and how these two families still have a hand in these conflicts. Well, a perfect example, I posted something today, or maybe it was yesterday on my page about, the capital of Aztecs and how when the Spanish came, that they destroyed their capital. I'm not even going to try to say the name, but you know what I'm talking about, Tianaquanon, or I can never say it. You get what I'm saying, though. Capital of the Aztec Empire. Well, as you guys probably are aware of, that their god, Kulkan, Quetzalcoatl, was a feathered serpent.
Right.
Well, Enki and his family, they went to South America and North America, and they taught the native tribes of the North and South, a lot of teachings about the universe and esoteric things. And that's why you had a rise in technology and, the Incans and the Mayans and Aztecs. The North American Indians are very spiritual, they believe in the gods and all this stuff. But even within the North American tribes, you'll actually find more of an influence of Enlil, because they tend to go towards the eagle, where the Southern tribes went towards the feathered serpent. But what's interesting is when the Spanish conquered the Aztecs, it was like that brother's armies overcame the armies of the other brother. And you look at the Mexican flag to this day, what does it have? There's an eagle clutching a serpent in its talons, like it conquered the serpent.
Right.
And then you look at what's going on right now on the earth with a lot of conflicts. You look at there's becoming a soon battle, more likely, or at least a major conflict between the armies of the East, the Chinese. Well, who's the Chinese represented by? The dragon, the serpent, the dragon. Same thing. See, they have their New Year festivals and all that. They have this long dragon that looks like a snake with wings, and I mean that's, like I said, it's
a feathered
in
serpent.
America, in the Western world, are represented by typically the eagle. So I mean, so these wars of the gods are still playing out today.
That is a trip. I didn't even think about that.
I have plenty of homework lessons to work on now for this.
We're gonna
But one thing, if you guys don't mind, like I want to leave everybody with like hope and with a sense of peace too, because I don't want all this to sound totally negative. But let's be real. When you get into this stuff, you have to go deep into darkness.
Yeah.
But you become that light in the darkness, and the darkness can't extinguish your light. But I do believe there is an awakening happening on the earth, and little numbers of people are starting to wake up, and they're trying to stop that. They're trying to control. Why do you think they're trying to control speech so much? And they're trying to propagandize harder than ever, because they're losing control of their narrative. And
good people.
So well, we are fragments. We are fractals. We are directly connected on the spirit level to the creator of all.
Yes.
So don't be afraid. I mean, we're only partly residing in this dimension. This is not reality. We think it's reality. This is just, I mean, what you think is reality is just what your senses of this human body, this avatar, is feeding you back electrical signals, telling you, you're feeling what you're hearing, what you're smelling. None of that's even real. It's an illusion.
It's a sliver of the full reality.
Exactly. So, I mean, our spirits, our souls, whatever you want to call it, resides outside of this too. We're connect. Like, think of the human avatar is like the space suit, that allows us to go into this space, that allows us to connect into this space, so that we can experience third dimensional reality, matter reality. But essentially, it's sort of an illusion, you know. I, I I go back and forth on simulation. I believe some is theory and some of it don't, but we are bigger and we are more powerful than what we think we are, you know. And
I don't think we've tapped into our full potential, that's for sure.
no, they like mentioned earlier, they cut our DNA down. We actually were supposed to have 3 strains of DNA, but they went and they fused our telomeres together so that they cut us down to just 2 strains of DNA. They limit our age. I mean, there's a reason why in the Bible and the Sumerian tablets and everything, why humans lived a lot longer back then, you know, but they tinkered with us because we were becoming too big for our pan and they were worried about that. So
That's crazy.
Maybe becoming a little too much like them.
oh,
But they were
the Tower of Babel. We'll talk about the Tower of Babel another day because it's not what everybody thinks it was, you know, completely.
What was your most favorite fascinating thing about the Anunnaki? Like the standout, incredible information?
Well, honestly, when I'm looking at those ancient depictions in stone of the DNA of the tree of life, of the tree of knowledge, of Enki holding the pine cone and plugging it into the DNA, the tree of life, of Ninhursag, his sister, that helped him hybridize humans, of her holding Adamu on Adapa is another name for Adam. It depends, you know, Akkadian, Sumerian, Babylonian, they all have different names, but of her literally holding up Adam on her lap, and of the other Anunnaki, the other physicians that were working with her, of holding clay jars and everything that they were taking essence out of. You know, I mean, they tried to break it down in a very simple form for us. And when you start to really look at that, I mean, look at the god Ahura Mazda, which is actually the god Enlil. You know, that's the one that the Zoroastrians worship. I mean, he's sitting in a flying machine, flying over humans. You know, it's got the wings of the eagle once again. That's, you know, Enlil's symbol is, you know, that's what he's always represented of. And here you have this being flying over, watching over the humans being led by chain underneath him by other bigger, slightly bigger beings, you know. So
That's
I
ringing
mean,
a
you just
bell.
start looking at all that. It's just mind blowing, and you can't, once you see that, you can't not unsee it.
Yeah, well, like the symbolism in modern culture, we say that all the time. Once you see the symbolism and learn to once you've recognized it, it's always there. You can never miss it. And we found it kind of takes away, like
Yeah.
to go see a movie. I used to watch movies and pick apart the special effects. Now I just see the symbolism, and it's like disappointing to go
What's
to the
the
movie.
hidden message?
The story is just gone,
Yeah.
and all I
Yeah.
have is these symbols to try and make sense of.
And to be fair to some of the Hollywood producers, there are some good guys. You know,
Sure.
there's always good guys. There's always, you know, it's not all bad guys that do there's people that get into the system, but they're good and they realize and they try to figure out ways to work, you know, to tell us truth around the lies and right. You know, like Stanley Kubrick's a perfect example. Eyes Wide Shut. You
Yeah.
know, we all know the you know, those of us that have researched into it,
Yeah.
not just the movie itself, we understand what was taken out of the movie and we understand what happened to him. That, you know, that conspiracy theory, you know. And but you look at all his movies, I mean, and what he was trying to sneak out there and let us know, you know,
Yeah.
they do. I
Like
mean,
the
some of
lunar
them do
landing.
try to give us some of that truth.
You've heard about the Stanley Kubrick and the lunar landing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know where to go with all that because
know.
part of me, like wants to believe in the you know, this you know, secret space program. And then
Yeah.
part of me is like, well, would they actually allow us to leave Earth? You know? And then I don't know if you guys have ever watched any of Billy Carson's stuff. He's somebody that I've actually learned a lot about the Anunnaki, the Emerald Tablets from. He's an amazing guy. He's on Ancient Aliens sometimes. He just put out a movie called The Black Knight. It's about the Black Knight satellite. And he goes into a lot of esoteric stuff and talks about the Anunnaki and all that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes you wonder, are we allowed to leave this? Is this truly a prison planet? And maybe that's the thing. Maybe they try to keep our souls here or part of our essence trapped here into like a reincarnation cycle. And maybe we're not allowed to leave it. I don't know, but maybe we do. Maybe there are secret space programs and we already have the ability to fly to other, planets and other dimensions and other things, I don't know. Or
That's
maybe
a
they,
whole nother rabbit
maybe they
hole.
We're
built,
unlikely
yeah.
to.
maybe they built stargates and they're able to, like the movie Stargate, and they can go to these other like planets or these other worlds or dimensions through stargates. Like you guys were talking about the door on Mars. Well, you probably looked into the Mayan, the ancient like doorways that go to nowhere that the Mayans built, or sorry, not the Mayans, the Incans built. Possibly those were some kind of gate or something.
There was some sort of a hole opened up. I forgot what state. Did you see that? There was like a black hole. It looked like a Stargate in the sky, and there was an object there too. I'll have to dig that up. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, you saw that on Facebook, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's all over the place. I've been seeing it everywhere. But those are the places I look. I'm looking for anything interesting.
Another time we'll talk about CERN and stuff, because that's a whole nother deep rabbit hole too,
We
and
would
that
love
can
to
go
talk
into
about
like
that.
some of that. Yep.
That would be amazing. So I know that a lot of our listeners are going to want to get in contact with you. What's the best way to track you down and be connected?
Honestly, just right now my main platform. I have a couple other little platforms that I really haven't done much with because they're outside of Facebook and some of the main ones, and I just don't get the reach, or it's not worth my energy to put a lot into it. But Facebook is the main place you'll find me. Just look up Exit the Matrix with capital E, capital T, and capital M, all separate words. And that should take you right to my page. And all you got to do is like and follow the page. And then that way you can start, getting some of the tidbits and information that I put out there.
I just wanted to say goodbye and thank you so much for joining us today. We really enjoyed having you on our show. And we hope that everybody goes and checks out Exit the Matrix on Facebook. I'm sure Bob's going to be putting out a lot of great content for you.
Yeah. It's a wealth of information today.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for reaching out to me and, just being so awesome and inviting and, and giving me this platform to kind of go into a little more depth than maybe I do typically on my page, because a video, you can just way more information than you can do on some, memes and everything, so.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Bob. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Guys.
Thank you for watching. Come back soon for more great videos on strange and unusual topics, psychics, hauntings, energy healing, UFOs, entities, and other twisted shenanigans. Keep listening for a short clearing prayer.
We welcome all higher dimensional beings, archangels, and spirit guides in love and light. We speak to you from our heart to the Creator being. We are shrouded in light and love and are protected. We release any attachments or agreements that are not in our highest good and greatest good. We ask you to go in peace. The Creator welcomes you. You are healed and forgiven, lifted and enlightened. You are healed and forgiven, lifted and enlightened. You are surrounded with the Creator's light and love, safe to leave and ascend to your highest good. We ask the divine beings to help you move into your perfect place. Go in peace and love.